So was it working? Well, in the 60s and 70s, we had a bottom-up approach to healthcare in poor countries. And so what we need is not a top-down approach to healthcare, but something in between. And so if you were pushing for healthcare interventions in poor countries, then you need to get the bottom of things, the coal-face workers, the professionals, to be able to drive policy changes and to be able to advocate for their needs. But at the same time, you need to have a commitment from the top in order to pair up with that and say that you will support what it is that they're doing, and that you will provide the financing for that, and then you will weigh in politically against other competing issues and interests for that public health funding and for those public health requirements that you need to put in place in order to meet what the people at the bottom, the coalface, are trying to achieve. So if you just got a bottom-up approach to healthcare, then it doesn't really work. The World Health Organization wanted states to move past their interests and consider health for the good of all. And so what we were seeing was this sort of idealistic World Health Organization trying to get shifts in whole country policy, in how they ran their country and how they did things, and how they committed to public health as being an integral part of what it was that the country was trying to do with all of its policies and approaches and procedures for things, and to work hand in hand with this national body, the World Health Organization, and with other countries to try to address public health and global disease. The international community, unsurprisingly, weren't actually too sold on this. Improvements in healthcare that were put on this was put into place were often quite ad hoc and often quite uncoordinated, and so where they got a bit of traction in one country, the World Health Organization would push, but then they might find that in the country next door they got no traction at all. So if you managed to control, let's say, HIV levels in one country and the neighbouring country wasn't doing anything about it, because that's just the way the government was predisposed, then they had other priorities, then you'll find that those countries, the neighbouring country wasn't controlling it, and so then people were coming across the border, long distance truckers, all that sort, migrant workers, and then they were just reinfecting the people in the country where the World Health Organization has got some traction. So it really wasn't working, having uncoordinated and ad hoc approaches. We're also seeing duplication of effort going on, which is very wasteful. Something which is partly to do with this, the reasoning behind this is, despite the fact that World Health Organization representatives are very well thought of, the positions that they held as ministers within governments were very often as very junior minister posts. So the minister with responsibility for public health wasn't necessarily a senior minister, wasn't necessarily within the core cabinet or the core decision-making structure, and so there may just be one or two of ministers with relevant responsibilities. And so, depending on how much political clout they had, depended on how good that country was with its public health and how much the World Health Organization's reps got listened to. And so, very often what were very worthwhile intentions that they were trying to bring to the table, which would be very helpful for the country, such as decreasing infant mortality levels, were listened to, but actually got lost in the general chorus of voices in the political bodies of the country. And it's worth noting something around the opening of policy windows here, which is in order to get so a public body will only have so much time, particularly in governments, to debate and decide upon policies. There's only so many hours for so many people to sit in a room and do this. And if you've got an individual, then it's very much with a dictatorship with one party, then it's very much up to that a smaller number of people to debate that. And so if you want to get a change in policy to improve something like health, then you've got to open a policy window, which you do typically by demonstrating a need. And so if you're demonstrating a need, very often you're demonstrating that the public bodies not doing what they're supposed to have done, because you're demonstrating they've got high infant mortality, for instance. And so that can often end up thwarting you in trying to bring in policies to address the infant mortality, because the public body is being embarrassed by you highlighting these statistics in order to try to get it on the policy agenda and get it debated and get some changes made to what's happening. But where that has been successful, so you have difficulties then in trying to, once you've opened up the policy window, in order to try to get the opinion of those few representatives debating that public health change in order to bring about some sway in the opinions of the other ministers in government, and get some changes and decisions made to improve what you're trying to work on. So World Health Organization was seen as being overly political, overly idealistic, and with little impact. And so the lack of success and that continued record of lack of success and lack of impact which the World Health Organization had went on to undermine its influence. It got known as being a body that the politicians did not have to listen to and did not have to adhere to.